Ferrari just made Lewis Hamilton look like a title threat again, and Mercedes felt it in one brutal afternoon. Barcelona was meant to show whether the red car had real pace or just another upgrade story with pretty words around it. Instead, Hamilton won by 19.5 seconds, took his first Ferrari victory, and dragged a dead-looking championship chase back into the light. This was not a normal win. It was the kind of result that forces rival garages to stop smiling, because something inside the SF26 had changed, and Ferrari did not show all of it. The listed upgrades were loud enough on their own: a rebuilt floor, a new front wing, a changed nose, a cleaner diffuser, and tighter bodywork at the rear. That is already a serious package. But the real story was never about the lap time. Hamilton had the grip to attack, the tire life to keep going, and the strategy to turn every fresh set into pressure. The number Ferrari did not publish was the one that mattered most. Behind the bodywork story, there was a hidden heat battle around the rear tires. That is why this win feels bigger than Barcelona. Hamilton is still 41 points behind Kimi Antonelli, but that gap no longer feels locked. Mercedes still has speed, George Russell still put the car on pole, and Antonelli still leads the title fight. But Ferrari now has proof, not hope. The SF26 found race pace at the one track that punishes fake progress. The first number to understand is not the lap time, it is the damage Mercedes took in the championship. Mercedes did not leave Barcelona with a bad result. It left Barcelona with a warning. Before the race, Kimi Antonelli had breathing room in the championship, the kind of lead that lets a team manage risk instead of chasing panic. Then one Sunday changed the shape of the season. Hamilton took the full win, Antonelli took nothing. A gap that had looked safe was suddenly down to 41 points, and that is where the whole Ferrari story becomes dangerous for Mercedes. Not because one race decides a title, but because one race showed how quickly control can disappear. Antonelli was not buried in the pack when the problem hit. He was running in a position that should have protected Mercedes from a huge points loss, and that makes the failure even more costly. The car slowed, the chance vanished, and 18 points disappeared from a lead Mercedes had spent months building. Russell still brought home second place, but even that could not hide the damage. Hamilton's win created a 25-point swing in one afternoon. That is not just a result. That is a crack in the championship picture. This is why Ferrari's Barcelona package cannot be judged like a normal upgrade. If Mercedes had finished second and third, the story would feel smaller, more controlled, easier to explain away. But Antonelli's retirement turned Ferrari's pace into a title problem. Hamilton does not need Mercedes to collapse every week. He needs Ferrari to keep applying pressure until every weak point starts to matter. And the next reason Mercedes should worry is simple. Barcelona is the track where fake speed usually gets exposed. Ferrari did not prove this car at a friendly circuit. It proved it at Barcelona, the place teams trust, because weak cars have nowhere to hide. A lucky setup can shine for one sector somewhere else. A strong engine can cover a flaw on a low downforce track. A brave driver can steal a result when chaos hits. Barcelona is different. It asks the car every question at once. High-speed balance, slow corner traction, tire stress, aero load, race pace. If the SF26 was only pretending, this was where the truth should have caught it. That is why qualifying mattered before the race ever began. George Russell still put Mercedes on pole, so nobody can say Ferrari beat a soft target. But Hamilton was only 0.064 seconds away, close enough to make the whole Mercedes garage look twice. Antonelli lined up third, which confirmed Mercedes still had the pace to fight. Leclerc's Q3 crash and P10 start added the harder truth. The Ferrari had speed, but it was not easy. It needed a clean lap, full trust, and a driver who could place the car right on the edge. So Barcelona gave the paddock two answers at once. Ferrari's pace was real, but the car still had a narrow door that had to be opened perfectly. Hamilton found that door. Leclerc missed it. Mercedes saw it. That is what made the weekend feel heavier than a normal win, because the circuit did not flatter Ferrari, it exposed the quality of the upgrade. And once that became clear, the next question was no longer whether the car was fast, it was what Ferrari had changed to make it happen. Ferrari's upgrade list looked calm on paper, and that was the trick. Read it quickly and it sounded like normal development. Read it properly and it looked like a rebuild of the airflow around the whole SF26. The new front wing was not there for decoration. The footplate, the vanes, and the small end plate wing were all working on the same job, cleaning the air before it reached the rest of the car. Ferrari was not chasing one headline part. It was rebuilding the path the air takes from the nose to the rear. The floor was the center of that plan. Ferrari changed the floor body, the floor edge, and the floorboard, which tells you the team was not making a small correction. It was changing how the car made grip under load. The new nose with the raised lower surface helped feed that area more cleanly, while the diffuser changes improved how the air left the back of the car. The reshaped side cutout and the new winglet angle were not random details. They were part of the same pressure system under the car. Then came the rear bodywork, and that is where the package started to look complete. The wider side pod shoulder and tighter coke line helped control the air wrapping around the back of the SF26, giving the diffuser a cleaner job to finish. That is why Ferrari's pace did not look like a single corner gain. It looked connected. Front balance, floor load, rear stability, all feeding each other. The official list explained where the grip came from, but it did not explain why Hamilton could keep that grip alive deep into a stint. Ferrari's most protected detail was not sitting under the floor. It was sitting inside the wheels. While rivals studied the front wing, the floor edge, and the diffuser, Ferrari kept the rear rims away from easy camera angles because those parts were fighting a different race. Not a race for peak downforce, a race for tire temperature. On a hot track like Barcelona, that can decide whether a car still has bite after 15 laps or starts sliding before the stint is ready to end. What no broadcast covered is this. The rear rims were not on the bodywork list because they were not bodywork, but their effect was still huge. Their job was to move heat away from the rear tires from the inside, keeping the rubber calmer when the fuel load was heavy and the track was punishing. Reports around the paddock pointed to rear tire temperatures running at least 15 degrees cooler than the previous year because rim design had become one of the quietest development fights in 2026. Ferrari was clearly not treating that area like a small detail. That changed what Hamilton could do with the car. A cooler rear tire gives the driver more traction on exit, more confidence when the stint gets old, and more freedom to push instead of saving everything for later. Mercedes could see the lap time, it could see the gap opening, but the reason behind it was harder to copy in one weekend. Ferrari had found grip from the aero package, then found a way to keep that grip alive, and once strategy entered the picture, that tire edge became a weapon. Ferrari did not wait for the race to come toward Hamilton. It forced the race to move at his speed. Starting on the soft tire told Mercedes exactly what was coming. Pressure from the first stint, pressure before the pit window settled, pressure before anyone could breathe. The stop on lap 12 was not defensive. It was Ferrari pulling Hamilton out of traffic and giving him the grip to attack, while others stayed exposed on older tires. That first call changed the rhythm of the afternoon, before Mercedes had time to control it. Then Ferrari doubled down. The second stop came around lap 28, and by then Russell's two-stop plan was starting to look neat on paper but heavy on track. Hamilton kept arriving with fresher rubber, cleaner exits, and enough pace to make Mercedes react instead of lead. This is the part that changes everything. On lap 41, Fernando Alonso stopped his Aston Martin before turn 9, the virtual safety car came out, and Ferrari saw the opening instantly. Hamilton came in, took the final set, and lost far less time than a normal stop. Carlos Sainz's radio call gave the moment its edge, because Ferrari knew the race had opened in front of them. Hamilton came out with tires 5 laps fresher than Russell, and 4 laps fresher than Antonelli, and the advantage was estimated near 0.75 seconds per lap. That was no longer just strategy. That was Ferrari using timing, tire life, and confidence all at once. Mercedes could still fight on speed, but the bigger concern was waiting underneath the result. Their fastest car had started carrying a title-sized weakness. Mercedes still has a fast car, but speed means less when the garage cannot fully trust the car to finish. That is the fear Barcelona exposed. Toto Wolff could call Ferrari's upgrade a monster, and that word carried weight. But the bigger problem for Mercedes was not only the red car getting quicker, it was the pattern forming inside its own season. Antonelli did not lose second place because he lacked pace. He lost it because the car suddenly stopped giving him a race to finish. That detail matters because it was not isolated. Russell had already lost a strong result in Canada after a similar power shutdown, and now Antonelli had been hit in Barcelona with the championship lead on the line. When the same general battery area keeps appearing in the explanation, rivals do not need to panic. They need to apply pressure. Mercedes' technical leadership admitted the problem was painful, and new parts were expected later. But expected later does not help when the next races are already coming. Ferrari now has a cleaner path than it had before Barcelona. It does not need Mercedes to fall apart every weekend. It only needs Hamilton to stay close enough that one more technical issue becomes expensive. That is what changed the mood of the title fight. Mercedes still has the lead, still has Russell, still has Antonelli, and still has serious pace. But Ferrari has arrived at the exact moment Mercedes has a reliability question it cannot ignore. The next answer will come when the championship reaches Austria. Ferrari's next test is not about proving Barcelona again. It is about proving the car can travel. Austria asks a completely different question, with long straights, short corners, heavy braking, and a power demand that does not forgive weakness. That matters because the SF26 has looked strongest when the floor and rear tires could carry the fight. Now the engine has to join the story. Ferrari is expected to bring its first power unit step there, with new fuel and updated hardware aimed at cutting the gap to Mercedes, Red Bull, and McLaren. Fred Vasseur will not sell this as a miracle, and that is the smart part. Ferrari did not reach this point through one clever drawing or one lucky Sunday. It took a rebuild across the team, more than 1,500 people, and a technical direction that finally looks connected from the front wing to the power unit. The leadership change that began earlier in the project could not save the winless 2025 season, but it may have shaped the first Ferrari of this rules cycle that looks ready to fight across different tracks. That is why the next race carries so much weight. If Austria exposes the Ferrari on the straights, then the Barcelona win becomes a special weekend built around heat, tires, and timing. But if the engine step works, Hamilton's 41-point chase stops looking desperate and starts looking alive. Monza is waiting later with a second possible gain, and there are still 15 races left for this fight to turn. Barcelona did not crown Ferrari, but it changed the championship from a chase into a threat.